The tale of the girls who could speak with the dead. On a late night, nearing midnight in late March of 1848, two young girls, Katie and Maggie Fox, suddenly burst into tears and called for their parents from the bedroom of their home in Hydesville, New York. Mysterious sounds echoed through the room, awakening the girls. The Fox family lit candles and searched the entire house, but could not find the cause of the noises. The next night, the sounds continued. And the night after that, and every night for the next 2 weeks. Each night, these sounds lasted for hours, leaving the Fox family in constant fear, worry, and exhaustion. On March 31st, the two girls went to bed early out of sheer exhaustion. Almost immediately, the sounds resumed. This time, Kate responded to the noise by clapping her hands. Surprisingly, this action seemed to have an effect on the sound. Maggie quickly followed suit, and everything seemed as if it were asking the noise to do what I do. The girls clapped 4 times, and the knocking responded 4 times. In the hours that followed, the two girls continued to interact with the source of the noise. Through this back and forth, they understood that it was an invisible intelligence, the spirit of a murdered peddler named Charles B. Rosner, whose body was buried beneath the house. It became evident that this spirit only communicated with Katie and Maggie. The following night, Margaret invited neighbors to witness her daughter's interaction with this spirit. Initially skeptical, the neighbors asked a series of personal questions, and with Katie and Maggie's assistance, the spirit accurately responded to each question with knocks signifying yes or no. The neighbors were shocked, amazed, and frightened, but some still felt the need for further evidence. Some volunteered to dig in the basement of the Fox family home to search for the body of Charles Rosner. Though the welling water prevented them from digging further, the lack of evidence did not deter those who believed in the supernatural phenomenon. They were convinced that a spirit existed in this small town and that the Fox girls could communicate with the dead. By the mid-19th century, the Fox sisters had become international celebrities, traveling the world to communicate with mysterious spirits. By the 1880s, over 8 million followers believed that the Fox sisters could speak with the departed. Their abilities were highly regarded and considered a religious phenomenon that could become a form of spiritualism. Over the years, spiritualism inspired Arthur Conan Doyle, brought hope to President Lincoln's widow, Mary Todd Lincoln, and incited anger in the great magician Harry Houdini, who vehemently denounced claims as mere deception. Knowing that their special abilities would not be properly recognized in the small village of Hydesville, Margaret sent her daughters to live with their older sister Leah in Rochester, New York. Rochester was a bustling city, fertile ground for political activism, religious freedom, and industrial innovation. In Rochester, Leah believed that wealthy individuals would readily pay for her sister's unique abilities. She organized seances for them to conduct in Rochester and invited prominent figures like Isaac and Amy Post to attend. Leah also substituted for Maggie and Katie when either couldn't perform. On November 14, 1849, the Fox sisters, Maggie and Leah on this occasion, held their first large-scale public séance at the famous Corinthian Hall in Rochester. Local newspapers advertised the event, and word spread throughout the city. Hundreds attended, some incredulous, while others came merely to scoff. But ultimately, no one mocked, at least according to the Rochester Daily Democrat. The assembly could not but acknowledge the evidence of the séance that the spirit was really there. Maggie, Katie, and Leah became internationally renowned figures. Celebrities of the time, such as Horace Greeley, William Cullen Bryant, Sojourner Truth, and William Lloyd Garrison witnessed their seances. The Fox sisters traveled the world, from London to New York City, affording people the opportunity to witness their bridge between the living and the afterlife. Typically, those who approached the sisters' abilities were grieving and emotionally wounded from recent losses. For example, Mary Todd Lincoln, still mourning not only the loss of her husband but also her son, attended the Fox sisters' seances. Individuals burdened by such grief were willing to pay almost any amount to speak with their departed loved ones once more. Leah, who managed most of the sisters' financial affairs, gladly accepted this. As Maggie and Katie grew older, they became increasingly disillusioned with their sister. At times, they wanted to break free from the seances, but Leah insisted it was impossible. Despite the money flowing in, Maggie and Katie seemed to receive only a small fraction. When Maggie fell in love and secretly married explorer Alicia Kent Kane, albeit illegally, she initially concealed it from Leah. But Leah soon found out and berated Maggie and her lover. Nevertheless, Maggie and Kane remained deeply in love until his sudden death in Havana, Cuba, in 1857. Maggie spiraled into severe depression and alcoholism. By October 21, 1888, Maggie felt she had nothing left to lose. That night, before thousands at the New York Academy of Music, Maggie Fox, exhausted, severely depressed, and nearly intoxicated, stepped onto the stage. Before the audience and with Katie by her side, she revealed a shocking revelation that the tale of the Fox sisters was nothing but a hoax. She disclosed, both onstage and in a signed confession published in the New York World, that the deception began when they were children. The sounds heard in their Hydesville home were not mysterious noises at all, but rather the dropping of apples tied to strings. At night, when we went to bed, we would often tie an apple to a string and move the string up and down, causing the apple to bump on the floor, or we would drop the apple on the floor, making a strange noise, Maggie explained. To perpetuate this hoax, the girls devised ways to create knocking sounds using their toes, fingers, and joints. Maggie demonstrated her prowess as a performer by removing her shoes and socks right on stage and making her toes emit knocking sounds. She also explained many other methods the sisters used to deceive, such as tapping on a specially designed table and learning to write on a slate with their toes. The New York Herald described the scene that night. There was a moment when it was positively ludicrous, but afterwards it became most singular. Every newspaper nationwide labeled it the death knell of spiritualism, as the one who helped make it a worldwide phenomenon revealed herself to be a fraud. However, spiritualism persisted. It truly experienced a resurgence after World War I, but the Fox sisters were seen as charlatans. Followers blamed Maggie's alcoholism, or even asserted that evil spirits had possessed her and forced her to denounce her abilities. Eventually, Maggie relented. A year later, she recanted her confession, stating, "I was too needy for money and the people took advantage of the situation. The excitement also unbalanced my mind. In making those fearful statements, I was reckless with my words." All three Fox sisters eventually faded into obscurity and died in poverty, starting with Leah's passing in 1890. In July 1892, Katie died from late-stage alcoholism. Less than a year later, Maggie also passed away from complications related to alcoholism. But there is a strange coda to this tale. In 1904, Arthur Conan Doyle wrote that students had snuck into the Fox family's old home, then known as the Spook House. There, they found bone fragments clinging to a crumbling wall, which a local physician later examined and deemed to be about 50 years old, the age at which Charles B. Rosner of Maggie and Katie's story would have died. Additionally, many claimed that alongside the bones, they found a peddler's tin box. After all, did the Fox sisters truly speak with the dead? Or was the tale of the bone fragments itself another deception? We may never know for certain without the aid of a genuine medium.